Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. And today we welcome Jeremy, the CEO of LBRY. How you going, Jeremy?
Doing great and happy to be here with you today, Alex.
It's especially important at the moment because we're seeing censorship on all sorts of platforms, including YouTube. So for people at home that haven't followed LBRY, you guys have built an open source digital platform, not just for video, but for all sorts of content. So do you want to let everyone know what you've been busy building for a while now?
Yeah, that's exactly right. LBRY is a decentralized, community-controlled digital marketplace, and what that means is we've made services like YouTube or iTunes possible via a network that is entirely controlled by the users. So it's a blockchain-based protocol. It's all open source. It's not, unlike some of these other companies that have done this, it's not just a website. It's a real app that connects to other users. We do have a web version coming out very soon, but you can try this right now. You can find almost 1 million videos on there. You can find Hollywood content. You can find some top popular streamers, and that's at LBRY. This is also big news. I was about to give the wrong domain. We have LBRY.com as of today. That went live. So LBRY.com, brand new domain, brand new site design. Go download, check out our app.
I did get redirected this morning when I was checking it out, so that's interesting you say that. But it's been running for a few years now, and you guys didn't do an ICO. So do you want to talk about a bit of the history behind the project?
Yeah, we did not do an ICO. It's probably questionable whether that was the right choice or not, given some of the ICO mania that happened at the time. But look, the project started just a couple of hackers, myself and a couple of the other founders of the company. We were into Bitcoin, and we started thinking about what is this technology fundamentally. And we're all computer scientists. I have a computer science and physics background, and to us, a blockchain is a database, right? That's what it is. If I have to pick another word, it's a database, and we can do things with this database that's not just money. I mean, money is a very powerful application, but we can do other stuff with it. We have this new type of database technology where we can all agree on what's in the database, but no one owns the database. And so we started thinking about, well, what are the other places where that's powerful? And when we hit on distributing digital content.
Yeah. And you guys built your own, similar to Bitcoin, your own blockchain, though. You're not built off Ethereum like a lot of other projects are at the moment.
That's right. So it's our own blockchain. It's our own data network. The project started as a fork of Bitcoin because why not start somewhere? But our blockchain is substantially different at this point from the design of Bitcoin's. And for people who really want to dive into the technical specifics of LBRY, we have a whole website for this. So it's separate from the .com. It's LBRY.tech, LBRY.tech. You can find a full specification. Even Bitcoin does not have a formal specification of the way that their technology works. So you can find to be fair, we cheat a little bit and say we do what Bitcoin does. So maybe ours doesn't count either. But you can find that on our website. Dozens of pages describing very specifically how LBRY works.
I will put all the links to everything in the description below later as well, guys. So at the moment, we are seeing censorship on YouTube. And just yesterday in Australia, we saw Zero Hedge and a number of websites get blocked by a number of internet service providers. So talk about that issue and how LBRY circumvents that.
Yeah. So, well, it's a delicate and complicated issue. I would start by saying that I think it's outrageous. I think any citizen, of the world, but particularly those in Australia and New Zealand, should be outraged and should be agitating. There's so much concern over net neutrality here in the United States, and that the internet was going to get ruined by corporations. And right now we have a government that's actively ruining it, that's breaking the fundamental rules of the internet, which is, I'm allowed to connect to domains and I'm allowed to access information. If people are breaking the law, prosecute them, right? If there's a law being broken, prosecute them. But let's not let the government decide which domains can and cannot be loaded. I think that's a really dangerous precedent. So I'll start by saying that. And then how it relates to LBRY. Well, LBRY to some extent is an answer to this problem. When you're accessing content on LBRY, you're not going to one domain. I mean, you do have to get the software installed initially, but you can get that from GitHub, from any number of places. And once you have that software installed, you're connecting to a fully peer-to-peer network. So there's not that censorship point of I'm going to exert control over the content here. That doesn't exist. And I will, well, I've actually been thinking about this a lot recently. What is the right word to describe my emotions around this? Because the videos are on LBRY. They were actually even trending on LBRY recently. And I don't, it's some pretty rough stuff, and we do our best. Also, you have to opt in to mature content and various things. Normal, you won't see it if you just open the app and you haven't opted in. But on one hand,
you have to draw the line somewhere for some content, don't you? But it's just as well, yeah.
But we can't. I mean, the nature of LBRY is we can't, right? We can't remove that content even if we wanted to, right? That's the nature of a blockchain-based open source protocol. The blockchain contains the entry saying it exists. The data is fetched peer-to-peer. The very nature of our business is we've tied our own hands in terms of what can and cannot be seen. And I think that to some extent, so one, I do think the video is of historical and cultural interest. I don't think it should be illegal for everyone in the world to access that video. I don't think that's the right answer. And so the fact that it's on LBRY, I think it is within the bounds of the law. And I think given that these other platforms are attempting to block it from being distributed, to some extent, I'm glad that it's available, because it means that people who do need to see it or strongly want to see it for some reason are able to do that. And I think that's important. At the same time, we want to make sure as a company that we're encouraging positive usages of our technology and not just negative ones.
Yeah, I guess my next question was, if you guys have no control over how that content is shared, distributed, and whatnot, what is LBRY's stance on that nefarious content that illegal content and whatnot?
Yeah, so I mean, there's two questions there, which is what's our stance on it, and then how do we comply with the law? So I'll start by saying our stance on it, right? So our stance on it is you should not use LBRY to do things that are against the law. Yeah. But our stance on it is that the right solution to people breaking the law is to catch the people who break the law and not attempt to believe that we can solve these problems technologically, because quite frankly, they're not solvable technologically. We've been playing these games of cat and mouse for, I'm old at this point. I can remember them going back 20 years. People older than me can probably remember them going back longer. Yeah. Of like, oh, okay, like, we're going to add filters here, or we're going to add this here. And does any of it work? It doesn't work, right? Netflix releases a new show and you can find it on BitTorrent 2 minutes later. So we spend hundreds of millions, billions of dollars attempting to do something that's impossible. And so to some extent, LBRY is kind of wants to acknowledge that the emperor has no clothes here, right? Yeah. But we don't want anyone to do anything illegal with our software. We very much discourage people from doing that. People can get caught for doing illegal things via our software, right? You're still on the internet. Yeah. When you click that publish button, other people could record your IP address, right? We're not claiming that LBRY is a completely anonymous way to do everything on the internet. And the same ways that people get caught, BitTorrent, people access illegal content on BitTorrent, and people get letters from their ISP or from someone else, yeah. Right? And that same kind of thing would still be possible on LBRY. So I don't think that we shift this too much one way or another. I think we've improved on some of the user experience around existing peer-to-peer technology. And I think that the nature of our technology is that we'll see way, way more legitimate usage. So let me actually be clear. I said there's almost 1 million things on LBRY. To our knowledge, around 100 are against the law. So percentage-wise, we're talking about a very, very low percentage of content that is against the law.
And as you say, people can torrent and seed and share that content anyway. It's kind of not talked about. It's in a dark corner of the internet, but it is out there, and those people will get found sooner or later. But I do want to move on and talk about the two layers that you guys have got. So the protocol versus the services and how all that works.
Yeah. So it's our company does. You kind of think of our company as doing three things. So one is we make the LBRY protocol. What this is documented on that website that I mentioned, LBRY.tech. It's a blockchain-based protocol for facilitating the discovery, distribution of and purchase of digital content. But a protocol is not useful unless we have ways to use it, right? HTTP is not used. I mean, it's much less useful without a web browser, and SMTP is much less useful without Gmail or other email clients, right? So we make apps, right? We didn't. Some blockchain companies have taken the attitude that if they make a good set of APIs, someone else will come along and create a killer app. That hasn't been our attitude. Now, we think it's wonderful. We support it. We have community projects. But we said, we're going to take the ownership ourselves of also releasing the first apps. So we make an Android app. We make a desktop app. There's a web client. It's not the full experience, called Speech, spe.ch. Yeah. That's sort of more like an imager or a streamable, but it's blockchain based. Yeah. And that's a host that will stand up for free speech and back content staying on there so long as it's legal. And then we will be having a web version of the desktop app coming out. And anyone interested in signing up for that can sign up at LBRY.tv, LBRY.tv.
Cool. And I am going to start uploading my content there as well, because I've started experimenting with a few others, and you can get rewarded as well for content, particularly good content. So do you want to talk about how that reward system works?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we didn't do an ICO, but we did retain some of our token, right? So it hasn't all been mined by miners. We kept, among what we kept, 20% of all the tokens are in a community fund, basically explicitly designed to be given out to users, to be given out to creators. And so for new users of LBRY, you'll get some tokens as a thank you for joining. You can earn tokens for watching content. You can earn tokens on a weekly basis for watching featured content. And similar things exist as a creator. If you're a YouTuber, you can mirror your content to LBRY. Don't have to lift a finger. So just extra revenue without having to do any of the extra work. That's the kind of deal as a business person that I like. It's free money seldom exists, but I'm going to say this is one of the cases that it basically does. Yeah. So you go to lbry.com/YouTube, and any YouTuber can sign up there to mirror the content. And of course, creators can just publish directly, can make their content available. You pick the price. And you get 100% of the price that you pick. So there's no cut taken by us as a company, nor do we even have the ability to take a cut if we wanted to, again, due to the nature of the technology.
So I just want to dive into how these files are hosted. As you said, blockchains don't really have a lot of capacity for uploading large 1080p video files and so on. So how does that work?
So first of all, I'm going to say that's a great question. I'm always shocked when people don't ask more questions about this, especially on a blockchain show. So kudos to you. So when you publish to the LBRY network, what happens? So we make a blockchain entry. That entry is actually limited to 8 kilobytes, so a very small amount of space. That 8 kilobytes is used for the metadata about your content. This is stuff like the title, who's in it, tags. We have a whole signed identity system that we call channels, right? So all that fits into the 8 kilobytes. None of the content is in the 8 kilobytes. Inside of that is a unique identifier that points to the data network. And this is basically how BitTorrent works. We use a technology very similar to BitTorrent called a DHT, distributed hash table. And so basically it's in a peer-to-peer network. And when you first click that publish button, it bursts it out to other peers who are listening for that initial publish, so that the content is not only hosted. It doesn't have to wait for someone to come and download it. Right? So otherwise you'd have to keep your computer running, tell people access it. So it does this initial burst when you publish, at which point it should be on at least a couple of hosts. And then when other people go to download it, they're getting it from the other hosts. And yes, when you're running the client, you're participating in the network. So when you run the LBRY app, you're hosting for other people.
And earning rewards by hosting as well?
Not as many as you should be. By default, we actually opt everyone into hosting for free. We do give you some rewards simply for participating. There's more that we should do to reward you for the exact amount of disk space and bandwidth. So some of that's not there yet, but you will earn rewards simply from keeping it open. Yeah, that part's accurate.
Cool. So do you find a lot of people are mining as well as hosting to get that reward, as you say? And the other question I wanted to talk to you about was your thoughts on Tron and BitTorrent and this whole concept that people are going to use a token, and because this is a free world in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So I think mining has pretty much become a specialty task in most blockchain ecosystems. Some of our end users do mine, but a lot of the mining is done by people who are sort of dedicated to mining, or even if they are an end user, they've got their mining rig in the cloud and they're not, mining at home or whatever. That doesn't. look, in an ideal world, mining would be more distributed. I think the economics are such, though, that I'm not sure that unless you're going to continually play cat and mouse with your hashing algorithms, I think the incentives are such that you're going to need special equipment. I just think that's how it's going to work. So that's sort of the nature of mining. In terms of the question about these other technologies, I mean, yeah, I hate these blockchain companies that are sort of all hype and no product. We try to run one that's kind of the opposite. Yeah. People to the point that maybe we should be doing more hype because people check our stuff out and they're always like, "How have we never heard of you? This is it's some pretty good stuff." And to me, Tron. So I haven't done a deep dive on it. I've seen enough that they've made promises that I don't think are technologically possible. Blockchains are anti-scaling sort of technologies. This idea that we can use them for this large amount of micropayments, I think, is an open and unsolved problem. I also think that they're not even addressing, although to my knowledge, I'm far from an expert on Tron. To my knowledge, they're not even addressing what I regard as the biggest problems, which is like my biggest problem with BitTorrent is, well, one, I should say it's all too much infringing content. I would like to see more legitimate content on BitTorrent, but also just the user experience is just really poor, right? The apps are poor. The places you have to go to find a torrent file are poor. And there's no ability to choose, there's no ability to choose the difference between legitimate or illegitimate. And so but in terms of if you click a torrent file, will it get downloaded? That's not really my top problem with BitTorrent.
Yeah.
To the point that I would want to spend money to get faster speeds. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like to me, it's look, I'm not saying that's not an improvement. But it wouldn't be at the top of my list of problems with BitTorrent.
No, I think in Australia, the copper internet's not going to go a lot faster anyway. So that's one of our biggest problems.
So I would say be skeptical. Also, it's like they already have Tron and now they're making another token. And I just think you got to be skeptical of all that. Find the companies that are making actual software that you can use, that you can run, that's documented. Right, that's not just a clone of something that other people have made with a find and replace on the strings, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I think Tron is a lot of that. So I would say be wary, but I should also be clear I haven't done the deepest dive, and if people want to tell me that stuff exists, I'm happy to amend my comments.
Cool. Well, any final thoughts for anyone out there today? I'll put all the links in the description below, as I said, but encouraging people to go check out LBRY and the content there.
Yeah, I mean, my number one encouragement would be to come and check it out. We've got a great app. You'll absolutely find content that you love. You can get off of these major networks that are, quite frankly, not respectful to their users. A lot of the major tech platforms seem to take the attitude that they own you, and they kind of say, "Well, screw you if you don't like it." And our attitude is the exact opposite. You can come join our community, interact with the developers. You can get involved in any number of ways. We have a whole bunch of community initiatives. We'll fund projects. We'll fund you if you're a content creator. So there's just a lot of really cool stuff going on. And if you're listening to this show, you're probably the kind of person who would enjoy using LBRY.
Fantastic. Well, awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today, mate. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, thank you, Alex.
Thanks, guys.